I'm going to start. We're going to start if you guys are ready. Yeah? Sure. Question 1, yeah. What percentage of your overall book production are you anticipating running on EUDR compliant paper? Well, starting now, but rolling into 2026, obviously. But 46 answers and very split, which is quite interesting. So I'll start with you, Steve. What are you, in terms of your customer base, where does this fall? How much of an issue has it been for you guys?
I think the only fair way to answer an EUDR question is with a really complicated response, right? That nobody can really follow. So if you think about our business and how we operate, in my role with responsibility for global manufacturing and operations, we are a publisher primarily, legal and tax publisher as Thomson Reuters. So we produce products in 4 different regions of the world. We manufacture some of those on owned assets. We outsource some of that production, warehouse, and distribution to partners in different regions. So to give you a high-level view of that, in the U.S., for our U.S. and Canada legal and tax business, we manufacture that in Minnesota, warehouse, and distribute. Some of that ends up in the EU. Then you think about our UKI business, that gets manufactured in the UK, warehoused, and shipped, some of it ending up in EU countries, but we do that through a contract partner. Then we have our AEM business, where some of that product is being produced at a partner, again, ending back up in EU countries. And then finally come back to the US. Our plant in the US that operates as Core Publishing Solutions is serving other publishers as a producer and in some cases a warehouse and distribution partner. So ask me how I'm thinking about it. It's in all of those categories. But if you want to talk specifically about US, basically everything in our US plant is subject.
Okay, and my mistake, there are probably some people who don't know who you are. So if you wouldn't mind just giving that, even though I think they figured it out at this point, but maybe just a little bit.
So Steve Zweber with Thomson Reuters Core Publishing Solutions. My role there is I have responsibility for global manufacturing and operations.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead, Christian. Introduction first.
All right. So Christian Schamberger with Lakeside Book, VP of Sales. And EUDR for us is we serve obviously the book market, but primarily trade, religious, and education. And we have a significant amount of customers that supply paper to us, which obviously is one side of it. The other side is what we supply. But as a printer and as printers out there, nobody wants to have multiple processes. And so for us, it's going to be where we would respond the 50% and over category here, because it's really trying to streamline the operation and have you bring in a lot of difficulty when you bring in more variabilities to having to maintain 2 different workflows per se.
Pete?
Pete Larson, Bethany Press International. I've been there, it'll be 28 years in December, and I've owned it for the last 11. We are a trade book manufacturer focusing on the Christian publishing industry. So we actually, this is one of the areas where we are, it's beneficial to be the smaller size that we are. We really have 5 main stocks that we carry. And Christian kind of stole my answer because we all need to be streamlined and to try to manage multiple aspects. Oh, this one's going there. And we don't even know from our publishers if they even know any particular title where it's going to end up. So we've made the decision that with our paper manufacturers, we're going to make sure that all the tech stock we use is going to be compliant.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Question 2. All right. This is where do we see efficiencies of high-speed digital versus traditional offset? And again, an interesting split, although it doesn't look like many people are guessing over 5,000 here. So do you think that number's changing over time, or where do you, anybody who wants to jump on this one? Go ahead, Christian.
Sure. So from our standpoint, I think it's changing. I think the industry continually sees it changes as there's an evolution in technology, as equipment continues to get, at least on the digital side, as it continues to get quicker and wider. There's a lot of different areas that impact the price, but for us, I would see that on the 2,000 to 5,000 units. So again, as presses continue to evolve, I think there's going to continue to be erosion there. Now, on the other side of it, you've got offset equipment, which is getting quicker and smarter and more efficient as well. But I think we're going to land right within that 2,000 to 5,000 unit.
Okay.
Anything to add? Because we're going to pump. I mean, there's 10 of these, so everybody doesn't.
And we've had toner for a while now. Now we're implementing inkjet. And Vahaj has assured me we can do like 100,000 runs in this puppy. So We're looking forward to that. But no, that the 5,000 mark is kind of what we're looking at.
Okay.
I think the only thing I would add is that certainly you could answer that question for the industry in general, but it really, if you're looking at a supplier, it's going to come down to what their platform is and what makes the most sense within their specific platform or resources that they have.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, the question that all the associates in the room are very interested in. Over the next 2 years, where will your largest capital investment dollars be directed? And as kind of we just talked about, high-speed inkjet is in the lead here, or toner, just high-speed digital presses. And then, not surprisingly, finishing and binding right there probably. Oh, I guess they're a little bit ahead. I should put on my readers because I can't even see my own phone here. Oh, yeah, it's 18 to 16. See, if without those two numbers look exactly alike. Not as much on IT or traditional offset or explaining footprint. So I know it was great when interest rates were zero back after the COVID, and everybody was snapping up machinery to expand capacity, and it's not that way now. Nice little quarter point knock last week, but how are you guys? Are you guys looking at CapEx at all at this point?
I would like to ask Dave to cover his ears on my answer here. So for me, I would see us needing to invest significant funds into the IT systems, honestly, because again, AI has been a buzzword across all manufacturing industries, but even aside from AI, it's for me, there's got to be a big focus on workflow and streamlining and automation and creating data lakehouse and so on and so forth that goes along with that to make sure that we're prepared as a company for the future in terms of streamlining workflows, reducing our labor costs, so on and so forth.
Well said.
Okay.
I think that's where I'm at.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next one. What strategy has been the most effective in mitigating the instability because of tariffs? The big winner being pass them on to the publishers. Okay, well, this is the best way to do it, right? You can't pay for everything, although it looks like there has been some strategic early buys and automation. I think, as we heard, we just don't know where that tariff train is going at this point. But anything to add to that? Have you seen a lot of pushback for those of you who are passing on increases? Is it kind of a little bit expected, obviously not enjoyed, but you're not catching anybody off guard right now, are you?
I'd say no. Actually, I've got a few customers that are pretty up to speed on things. They're watching things pretty closely, and they often reach out to me before I can even reach out to them and say, hey, we heard about this. How is that going to affect our pricing? Which is a question I love, because they open the door for me to have that conversation rather than it's something it's sprung on them. And we got it early on because of the plates with Kodak, et cetera. So we started before all the tariff stuff came in place of having to deal with extra costs. And we've not gotten a lot of pushback yet.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is I feel that our customers are always very price sensitive. So whereas it's difficult to raise it in regards to tariffs, we're in a unique position as an industry, and I get excited talking about the lobbying efforts potentially because, these tariffs have a double impact on us as an industry because we're paying those additional costs on equipment that's manufactured overseas or materials coming in from overseas. And yet the competition potentially that we're up against is not having any tariffs applied to it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Moving on. Over the last 12 months, what percentage of your publishers has significantly standardized print specs? Something we talked about earlier this morning. Again, interesting poll results that are very, very, very split in terms of percentage of customers that are doing that. So do you think they're not standardizing just because of they're really artsy and our book is different because they all want to be unique? Or is it because they don't know? Is it because are you starting those conversations with people? Or for the people that are jumping in, is it, hey, I'm saving money, right?
Yeah, I would say our experience has been that latter piece that you mentioned, that it generally hasn't come to us as a request of how do we standardize. It's us coming to the customer with some options that could help them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll echo exactly what Steve said. It's really about having that communication from our standpoint with the customer and trying to optimize how their money can best be spent.
Okay.
Matt, I'll go back to the panel you and I were on at ECPA back in 2019. I mean, we were talking supply chain before it was sexy, before it was cool.
That's right.
And I've told my customers for a long time that I want to keep our products, our papers, et cetera, in the mainstream, slipstream of what the paper companies are producing. I don't want to be the ancillary guy. If you tell me that I'm a bigger user for paper, I say time out. I know we're not that big, and when things get tight, that paper is going to go. That message actually has gotten through to quite a few people, and that's why we have, like I said, we had 5 main stocks. We're down from 9 because people have started to kind of, well, Pete, what is that? And before they make any change, the bigger ones will say, "What's the availability in this? What's your minimum order quantity?" Things like that. So they're getting savvier before they make changes. At least reach out and ask the questions.
That's great. All right. Well, next one is with labor. How would you describe the current difficulty in finding and retaining skilled personnel? We obviously, Julie talked about it in our Q&A and mentioned it can be difficult. And not surprisingly, maybe unfortunately, it looks like the highest answers here are difficult, luckily, but manageable, and then critical shortage, significantly harder than last year. So the easier and the moderately easier didn't win the day here on this one. So I wish I had better news on that front. I mean, one of the things we didn't mention during Julie's presentation was I think last year, or 2023 or 2024, was like the first time ever where the death rate was higher than the birth rate in the U.S. So that means 18 years from now, we won't have people that can be joining the workforce because we just lost more than we gained. So I think this is one of those that's going to continue to be more difficult. Obviously, a lot of people talking about how AI can improve processes and make things easier. Full disclosure, these questions were created by AI. But in my defense, I put the 3 videos from Book Manufacturing Mastered, the morning sessions, into AI and said, create me 10 questions with multiple choice answers that would be good for a printer panel. So I used our own data, right? So we knew what we were talking about. Now, yes, I did go in and I did a decent bit of editing, but I'd say the 80 was there. I just did the 20. So AI can help, especially me. It's a one-man shop. All right. Let's look at the next one, which is volatility of orders, right? How does the current volatility of publisher orders and demand forecasting compare to trends? Like, are we talking right after COVID when we kind of went back to normal? Slightly harder to predict was the winner, but much harder to predict was right behind it. And I think that's nothing. Not a lot of people saying it's easier, but people ask me all the time when I see them at Frankfurt or wherever, what are you hearing, et cetera. And a lot of people are just like, But I don't know. Like it's just uncertainty, right? And that could be around tariffs. That can be around forecasting. And I think everybody in the room, if I had you fill out a form, it'd be slightly different, right? Are you higher or lower last year? Some of you are going to be like, well, in certain months I was higher, in certain months I was lower, or there's a lot of volatility. I mean, what have you guys seen this year, 2025, say compared to some of the last 5 years?
I guess I wouldn't use the word volatility as much. I would say, an overall soft market. If you know the trends of the categories that you work and produce in, it's not really volatile. It's what you expect. But just overall, a softer market, I think, is what I would say.
Yep.
Yeah. That's kind of what
exactly. That's exactly what I would say.
Well, and I would say for us, one of the downsides of being in such a niche that we are is that all of our customers tend to follow the same patterns. They're up and they're down at the same time. They've been fairly consistent. They do a fairly good job. Some of them, larger customers, do provide us with projections, even like into mid 2026. Whether or not they're going to stick, they don't know. It's just a projection on their part. So we don't make a lot of decisions based on that. We try to be as flexible as possible, so we're not locked into anything.
Fair. Okay. And the next one, do you anticipate being fully ready for EUDR? Most folks answered, we expect to be ready, but obviously challenges remain. That could just be the fact that we don't know what the final thing is going to look like or whatever. Good number confident they're going to be there. Handful unlikely to be ready. And God bless the 4 who are not focused on this because you have minimal exposure.
Can you get a show of hands?
I'm not sure we need to.
No.
Yeah. And which metric generally guides your publisher partners today? Because this is one we talked about at BMM, and I know that we've been banging this drum since probably that same panel you and I were on, Pete. But with your publisher partners, what's guiding their directions, whether it's lowest unit cost versus, for lack of a better term, TCO? And unfortunately, we're still in the lowest unit cost era. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing any changes in that, though, say, over the last few years, or is it still the people that are at lowest cost are still lowest cost? Christian, you get to go first.
All right. So it depends. Yes and no. So it depends on the publisher. From that standpoint, you've got your publishers out there that are always chasing the lowest cost, and that's how they are. But you've got your other publishers that are embracing some of the technology, looking at the TCO, and really trying to optimize their supply chain from that standpoint. And a lot of it as well comes down to education and making sure that we're educating our customers on what those offering solutions and the advantages are to looking at the TCO.
Agreement from the other 2 gentlemen, it looks like.
I would say, yeah. And I've seen changes at the publisher side, too, with changes they've made with the way they distribute their books, the way they store the books. They've addressed it on their side, trying to reduce their TCO. But by and large, they still want that lower unit cost at the same time. But I think they're getting more educated and starting to make smarter decisions. It's taking more and more time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last one. To justify investment in new capacity and equipment, have you required more formal commitment agreements from your key partners so that you can justify and you feel more comfortable with those investments? I mean, between slightly more often and significantly more often, that definitely wins in this one. So at least it looks like people are getting those commitments, I think, which is a good thing. There is a little bit of unchanged and only one person focused on short term. So how does that look for if any of you guys have been able to get those commitments or agreements? How does that help? How does that help you decide what CapEx you're going to spend and how you're doing your planning? Steve?
I can speak, yeah. I would say it wouldn't be something that we've traditionally done as a requirement of our publishers to go there, but with uncertainty and a softer market, I definitely see it as a strategy. Before we would extend a large investment, we're going to want to have that confirmed or committed at a higher level than we have in the past.
Okay.
So it depends. Again, it's going to be my response that there's times where we are going out there and purchasing equipment and it's for a customer and we will require an agreement or a contract or something if we're putting it in specifically. And then outside of that, there's got to be a cost justification or a business justification for putting it in and looking at the full ROI. And it's a process and to go through.
Actually, we only have one customer where we have an agreement with, and it's not hugely binding. It's more of like, hey, you're getting this line of work for the next 3 years type thing. But, it's more informal conversations with the level of partnership that we have and the great relationships we have. But on the other hand, if I was going to invest in something that would be adding a capability we don't currently have, that might change that picture somewhat. I'd really want some commitment before I go buy X piece of equipment to be able to do, like, for example, we don't do hardcover in-house. If I want to look at that, I might say, okay, let's see if I can get a commitment from a certain number of publishers to justify that expenditure.
No,
Just replacing current, one work to a different machine.
Sure. No. Okay. Thank you.
Maybe just one add-on to that too is a challenge for all of us is this category. If you think about innovation, if you can challenge yourself to think about what publishers are going to need most, then you don't really have to worry about the answer to that question. If you're truly innovating, putting forward something that's market leading or a first mover, you don't really have to worry about that question.
Yeah, interesting.
If you're right.
That's the big caveat, right?
Yeah.
Wrong.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Just we'll put this in the survey, but just for quick feedback, did you guys like the whole poll, like getting ideas? Yeah. Okay. Figured it was something new, and we already had the Hoover app, so it was in there. Might as well give it a try, right? All right. Cool. Moving on, and really the way we're going to do this is, I think we got exposed to a lot of stuff this morning, and right after lunch, which is great. But the big question I think to the BMI, both the associates and other actives in the room, is how does that affect me, right? So really, we're going to approach this panel more as what these gentlemen, it's almost like a reaction to what we heard today and how that mixes in with their business. So we'll start with kind of what David Shelley was talking about. And then, Dwight asked him what keeps him up at night. And of course, AI and Amazon was one of the things he mentioned. So what did you hear from David on what keeps him up at night that either is congruent with what you hear from your customers versus how that affects what you guys are doing on the day-to-day?
I will echo his response and say it depends. It varies in terms of what's going on. Right now, we're in the middle of this big installation of the inkjet line and everything. What's keeping me up at night is what did I forget? What possible thing have I missed? And so it's going to come and hit me in the face a little bit later. Fortunately, there's only been a few of those outages, but honestly, I'd say, I think he talked about it as well, just readership in general. I think we're all a little bit on some level terrified about the lack of reading that is happening on some levels. And what can we do as an organization, as an industry, to encourage that more? I mean, like you said, that the stats are there, the specifics are there, that, why can't we get that out more? And why can't people be buying into that more and get more reading done?
Yeah, I'll go here. Yeah, I've got to agree with it from that standpoint. I tend to get excited about where we're headed with technology, just with automation, with AI. So that doesn't keep me up at night. Now, how it affects education, I had the opportunity to go to a AI4 conference in Las Vegas this year, and one of the keynote speakers was Randy Weingarter, who is the head of the teachers union, and so they've partnered with Microsoft and some of the major tech firms to kind of lead where it's headed. And there's an adamant push from using the technology and AI in the K through 8 grades, which I found comforting from that standpoint, because they want to make sure that the kids are learning critical thinking skills and whatnot. Now, when you get into the 9th through 12th grades, they're all for it. They realize it's a part of the reality and where we're headed as a society and as a world. But then she went on as well to explain and talk about big concern with literacy. and making sure that talked about the importance of parents reading to their kids at a young age and how that develops. And so that echoed with me what he was saying and talking about it. And then how as an industry can we really try to push and drive literacy forward?
Okay. Well, did you have something, Steve? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to share. It goes a little bit to what Pete was talking about, but I loved his view on the generational difference in how books are being viewed. That an older generation would view that book as a utility, as a way to convey some information, and the younger generation is truly viewing it as a luxury, and they get excited about a book. So that gives me hope, like it gave him hope. But I think that's on us as manufacturers to figure out how to make that book something that people really want to pick up. The other thing I think that in those thoughts is kind of where the industry's been going. If maybe there's fewer bigger sellers, but more authored titles, it's where our industry is going anyway. So we're capable to react to that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think every year more ISBNs are issued. It's this new record for ISBNs issued than the previous year, with the availability of self-publishing and Amazon. Things like that. But one of the things he mentioned that you also just mentioned, Steve, is making it an object again, right? So things like sprayed edges, limited editions, et cetera. He's seeing a bigger spike in that. Are you guys seeing bigger demand from that from your clients?
We had a few requests for some kind of off the wall, more specific things that we're not in a position to be producing yet, but we try to at least give them a reference or referral to somebody that can do that kind of work.
Yeah.
Edge printing's just taken off. It's taken off in the industry. And so there's a high demand for that. And I know there was a lot of questions whether or not it would be sustained or is it a fad and whatnot. And I think some of those questions still remain, or what's going to happen to the pricing of it. But yeah, we've seen a huge demand and increase for that.
That's one of the ones.
In our business, we have some unique capabilities for embellishment just based on the law book business that we were built around. So, I think that serves us. What we have to think about is where we invest for this category. And we haven't invested yet in sprayed edges, waiting to see what that actual demand is. I liked his points on yes, it's been a huge fad. It's taken off. Is there going to be some shakeout? Have they been able to clearly predict what that demand is? How many people are willing to pay for it versus how many books were just, spec'd out for that, and what has been sales versus scrap on those.
Yeah. Okay. My last question really regarding what David had said was, he talked about not sure about the 4-color work in the U.S., as well as he's seeing more benefits from short-run digital prints rather than true POD. Any comments to those statements he made?
I would say I was in agreement with his views on POD versus short-run production. I think it's right on the money that still makes the most sense in most cases.
Okay.
It was interesting to me because I didn't know if I agree with that per se. I think that it all comes down to, from a digital print standpoint, it's all the same equipment. And so it really comes down to the workflow. Should there be a difference between POD or short run digital, or can it be the same workflow, and optimizing labor out there for the printers and for the workflows? So is it just turn into one and the same in the future?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be honest, I've never been a huge fan of POD. I never really thought that it was going to replace too much of the volume, and it's hard to make the economies work. It takes a lot of work. It's not just about can you print one book, it's can you distribute the one book and all the other things that go along with that. So we're a bigger fan of short run. We also, my current digital plan is inside of a distributor's warehouse, similar to some other people have done here. But, we're just doing what's called a print to replenish program, where we're just printing 10, 25, 50 books and literally going through a hole in the wall for them to put them out on the floor. And then their system just triggers orders to us every time they get to a certain point. As to the 4-color, I'm excited about the fact that we will now be able to offer that. I have no clue as to, how profitable that market is going to be if we can get to a price point that people are going to like. But just knowing that we can do it, I think is going to help us grow even deeper with our current customers. So we're excited about that.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about the Capitol Hill stuff. I'm not going to get too into the weeds, but what did you pull out of what they had to talk about, or what did they talk about that's most affecting you guys right now? Go ahead, Christian.
All of it. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. It's really tough to plan with the uncertainty in terms of knowing if you've got a need to purchase equipment, if you're trying to plan for the future. There's just a lot of unknowns. So it takes a lot of due diligence and planning and making sure the use cases are there. And if I got anything out of it, it was pretty much it could change tomorrow. And that's the reality.
Were you asking personally or professionally?
Professionally, Pete. Sorry. Yeah, we're going to stick to the professional level on this one.
Yeah, I will agree with Christian. I mean, there's until it happens, it hasn't happened. And like we're seeing look at EUDR, things just get pushed off, et cetera. I'm optimistic in the long term that things will work out for the better for the U.S., for us in this industry. But that's just how I'm made, too. So I can't back that up with a lot of data, honestly.
Yeah, I think there's a strong couple of pieces that are intertwined there with, a high tariff rate impacting the ability to make a capital purchase decision in something that is going to automate and reduce your requirements on labor with some of those policies as well. So I think those two things are very concerning.
Have any of you been directly impacted by not getting parts or things from overseas at this point? I know we've heard it from other industries that there's been, stuff not available because of tariffs, and because of that, have you guys been impacted at all so far yet?
Yes, actually. Not by the cost, but by red tape, in a sense. Ordering some parts from overseas that we needed for our binder. Planned on being down 2 days, but we had parts that got stuck in customs because a certain form wasn't filled out that even the manufacturer did not know needed to be filled out. So instead of being down 2 days, we were down 7. Fortunately, it was right when I was in the hospital having surgery, so I couldn't do a darn thing about it. So I heard about it when I got out, but and it happened one time after that. Now that's been corrected, but it's still, could they change and add more red tape later on as well? Possibly. Can we just streamline things? So that's how we've been affected. I mean, and I would say the timing of the expenditures. Like we all know it's volatile. We know what's going on. We were talking to Andy before about Switzerland, et cetera. So maybe it's not now, but maybe it's wait and see. It's not like make the purchase, don't make the purchase, or make the purchase. It's like, okay, maybe we'll make it later.
Yeah. Okay.
So simply stated, my costs have increased, mainly because we're carrying more inventory. More in reserve on those parts and assemblies and motors and things drives that we wouldn't traditionally have in stock, but just out of a
abundance of caution.
Yeah, caution. Just trying to be careful.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on to the education segment. I know not all of you are in the education segment, but let's start with education. Is what you're seeing with your education customers kind of flow with what Martha told us about?
Somewhat, I guess.
You were going to say it depends.
She didn't get into the adoption schedules and what's happening at the state levels per se, so not too much detailed information there. But a lot of people that play in education know that it's anticipating next year to be a strong year for education, and we should see some growth there. You also have what's happening at the state level, whether it's Florida announcing that they're putting $3 million towards their own reading program to develop it, or what Texas has done with Bluebonnet starting last year. And so there's a lot of change. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of unknowns. But there's also a lot of adoptions happening, and so there's the next year is going to be strong.
Yeah. Pete,
Not my market.
yeah.
Yes, similar. It's for the commercial work that we do in our plant. Education hasn't been a big segment for us.
Well, and it was interesting to see that the overall spending on higher ed was basically flat, but the share of print slowly but surely getting smaller and smaller, and I think that'll continue to happen. What other segments? I mean, so I guess we'll start with you, Pete, and religious in terms of, let's just say, the last 5 years, that trend, what does that look like for maybe the next 3?
It's kind of a microcosm of the industry as a whole. I mean, we've seen, mergers and acquisitions among the publishers as well, which you'll see tends to weed out some titles and some volume. I'm pleased to say, though, that the volume itself has been fairly steady, fairly predictable. The run lengths, I will say, from what I hear from some of my counterparts here, they tend to be higher than what I'm seeing in the general trade. But they're starting to come down too. We're a little bit in a bit of a slow period right now. I'm trying to get my mind around that right now because I've been so focused on other things that I may have slipped and missed something. But the relationships that we have because of our shared values, our shared faith is very important to us. And we try to say, like, we let them kind of dictate to us, kind of what's going to happen, what they're doing, and we speak to them when we can. But the partnership is there to the level that they do allow us to kind of help them in how they're going to shape things, so be more efficient. So some of the standardization, et cetera. But I'd say overall, it's been a very healthy, very consistent market.
Okay, Christian, what about trade or some of the other main segments you guys are?
Yeah, so from a trade standpoint, it's outside of edge printing, which has been just gangbusters. It's been a soft market, much to what Steve had originally said too. And I think there's a variety of factors that impact that, whether it's how much inventory Amazon's holding, or it's whether or not there's a lot of, bestsellers out there or runners out there, or just not a lot of great new content or authors working out there. There's a wide variety of reasons, I think, that are impacting that, but the overall trade market's been soft.
Yeah. And Steve, any markets in particular that you've seen that have been either particularly soft or maybe even growing?
I'd probably take us back to faith in just the most recent data, right? Faith has been kind of positive for most of the year where other things weren't as strong. But I think the most recent data from AAP is that that's turned the other way now. So to your point about watching to see what happens, that was interesting to see.
Okay. And then the last segment we had was the paper folks. Have you guys changed anything in the way that you're buying paper, whether that's, again, standardizing, less SKUs? Have you seen any issues? Are you doing anything specific to future-proof anything that might be happening within the grades you currently work with?
I'll take that first.
Yeah, I don't think I have a great answer. I don't think that we've changed a lot in what we've done. I think we probably enjoyed the reprieve from having to worry so much about paper and probably should get more into that mode.
I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm going to repeat just what Steve said. It's along the same lines. And obviously there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that we have the needed materials for the demand forecasts that are coming from that standpoint. But it's continuing just on that standpoint.
One of the trends that we've seen over the last couple of years or even longer is I see everybody kind of sliding down the paper quality scale, so to speak. We've dropped one of our offset stocks just because the demand for it dropped. Actually, we dropped 2 of them. And then we're dropping another kind of hybrid stock as we've seen people moving from 50, 60 down to the 45, et cetera, just taking advantage of those, the lower costs there. So I said we went from 8 down to about 5, main papers that we stock. And we're also blessed with some very tight relationships with our two main suppliers for the free sheet and for the groundwood. That they, even all through COVID, they kept us very consistent, very stocked. They actually fight on our behalf for the pricing when it comes up. Bring in the big guns of the mill when we have issues. It's been very healthy for us to have those relationships and have these guys really advocating on our behalf, which I think is an important role for the paper folks, for the vendors.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Well, we're going to open it up to questions from the floor here. Anything you want to know from these gentlemen specifically, whether it has anything to do with the sessions earlier today or not, feel free to throw them out there. Or is everybody just drank enough from the fire hose that is the BMI annual conference today and you all need a break? Going once. Going twice. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate you being part of this. Thank you.